Hello, and well, I would say hello from Maureen and Blessing here. So I'm Maureen Chiana, the founder of the Mindsight Academy and Mindsight Store. And I'm back here with Dr. Blessing Enakimio of Blair Global. We've been doing a series of sessions. If you're just seeing this video for the first time, there are about 4 videos that you need to go back and have a look at. And we're going to be doing this regularly. So today we're going to be looking at from disempowerment to confidence, a journey of beliefs. So Blessing, is great to be back again with you, chatting as usual, where you're tasking my brain, and it's really great to be doing this with you.
Same here. And thank you to everyone who has joined us thus far. And we hope that you continue to find our conversations useful and grow from it as we are learning as we go along. We are going to be talking about from disempowerment to confidence, a journey of beliefs. As we get started, as usual, please tell us where you're joining us from. We would like to know how far our reach is. So let us know how you are engaging with us. Right, Maureen, over to you on this one.
Yeah, I think this is one that I tend to come across quite a bit in the work I do, especially with the neuro leadership and coaching. And from disempowerment to confidence, it's the whole concept that the beliefs that we have is what drives your reality. And beliefs are formed in the brain from the wiring that you acquire from when you're a baby to whatever stage you're at. And beliefs could come from your experiences, from your upbringing, from culture, from society. But a lot of times people don't realize the impact that their beliefs have on the decisions they make, on how they perceive things, on how you behave, and how you feel things. So, how emotional you can be about certain things, or not emotional about certain things as well. This period, we've been focusing a lot on goal setting. So I'm going to start from there in terms of beliefs. So, for example, at this time of the year, we are setting new goals. Or even if you're not doing it now, at some point you will do it or have done it. But a lot of times, what people find is that they are not able to sustain the momentum to achieve those goals. And one of the factors is beliefs, the beliefs you have. So, for example, if you're setting a goal that you want to maybe start a project or start a business, now, if the belief you have is that you're not good enough, or that business is very difficult, or doing a business and succeeding is really difficult, or people that do business, they are not genuine, they don't have integrity, basically it could be anything. But if the belief you have around that thing you want to achieve is negative, then you will find that once challenges come, you will stop. You would literally either freeze or not go ahead. And that's why you find a lot of times you're either starting a goal and not achieving it, or start, stop, start, stop. A lot of it is driven by the beliefs that you have. Now, beliefs are wired into the brain from, like I said, the thought patterns or wiring or exposure that you've had over time. And they can become so ingrained in your subconscious. But the good news is that beliefs can be changed, beliefs can be rewired. And that's the whole concept of rewiring the brain. So, Blessing, what do do you have thoughts on this, or even experiences, or even questions?
Yeah, I think it's the thing that's popping to my mind is a statement I sort of posted maybe last week where I said, I am, therefore I think, versus I think, therefore I am. I think that's it's a philosophy around belief, isn't it? Where do you place your belief system? Is it in the head or is it in the heart? And I think it fluctuates. So I think my question is, before the question, I know that when it comes to beliefs, it's not something you can't be beaten into a belief. Over time, like you said, it's a construct that's built up. When you find that you have a belief that isn't serving you anymore, let's say you believe something up to a certain point, like we're saying from disempowerment, and you get to the point where now you start to question, those anchors. How do you review? What are the practical steps to reviewing our beliefs? Question one. Question two, then what?
Okay, great question. Now, speaking to someone recently, and one of the things that tends to come up a lot, I see a lot, is perfectionism, where
Mm,
people have wired themselves over time to be, perfectionists. And this person was saying that I'm a perfectionist, and I know that that's the way I am. That's it. That there's nothing I can do about it. That's it. So, and the problem was that I then asked, how does this impact on what you do? And he said that it impacts in the sense that a lot of times he might start something and not finish it because he feels that it's not good enough, or it will
mm,
take him so much longer to complete doing things. So a business that is meant to, or that is put a timeline, which we do a lot of times with goal setting, have a time frame. Business that they've put down in a time frame to start maybe in 3 months or 6 months, he'll find that because he wants to be so perfect at what he's doing, it doesn't happen. And then
mm,
when it doesn't happen over the 4 months, 5 months, he just gives up. It's almost like, what's the
mm,
point? But in speaking to him, the first thing he said is, I know I'm a perfectionist and that's the way I am. So, and there's nothing I can do about it. It can't change. So that is a belief. So
mm,
being a perfectionist is a behavior pattern that has developed. Believing that you can't change it is a belief. So in answer to your first question, it's start paying attention to what you tell yourself. Pay attention to what you're saying. Pay attention to what you think, because once you do, it gives you an idea of your beliefs. So this, once if with this person, once they change that belief system to I can, in fact, the first thing is to tone down the perfectionism because it's not serving you. Now, when
mm,
I work with embryologists, because I do quite a bit with the medical profession, with embryologists, that part of their brain needs to be quite high because that's the role they do. But when I work with embryologists that are in leadership, then you know that you've got to tone that part of your brain down, because yes, it serves in the role, but not it serves in the actual operational role of being a embryologist, but it doesn't serve well in leadership, because a lot of times you find that you don't delegate, so you become overwhelmed with too much work. So it's finding out what, how you're wired. Pay attention to what you tell yourself and believe that you can make the change that is required. And we come back to this whole issue of why do I need to tone it down? Why do I need to change being a perfectionist? Because what this person said to me is, I like being a perfectionist because it helps me pay attention to detail and do everything I do to a high standard. Yes, that's true, but it also stops you from meeting deadlines. So that means that it's probably wired too high, so it needs to be toned down. But also, if when you need to pay attention to details so much, you can. But when you don't need to pay attention to that much detail and tone it down to enable you carry out the job, then it's knowing that you can actually adapt. And that's the key. So
So
I
in
hope that answered both questions.
Yeah. So in this case, using the same example, being a perfectionist serves as both a disempowerment and at the same time could also serve as a confidence booster, depending on how it is applied. So just adapting, or sorry, just consolidating yourself in a box to say this is who I am can be both limiting and at the same time non-limiting. Is that what you're saying?
Well, kind of, but in the sense that putting yourself in the box is not even is wrong. It's a bad idea. And this is where things like personality come in. When people say this is the way I am because that's the way I'm
Mm,
wired, that is limiting. And that's why I don't do personality profiles. I go with the behavior patterns because we know that the brain can change. So it's a pattern that you've developed that can be changed. So in essence, understanding that being a perfectionist, maybe it serves you in certain aspects of your life. Being adaptable to know that in certain areas it doesn't, so I need to change. So the confidence will come from both. If you see what I mean. So confidence in the sense that when I do work, I put in all the effort to make sure that I do the work to a high standard. I take my time to ensure that I finish it to a very high standard, and I pay attention to detail. In that scope, it's great. You do that and it's fantastic. The only problem that I always say with anything is that when you overdo anything, it becomes a problem. So when you overdo a strength, it can become a weakness. So
mm,
when you're a perfectionist to a high standard in the diagnostic that I use, the prison brain mapping diagnostic, when you do it to over the 75th percentile, that can become a huge weakness because you find that you get bogged down in detail. And this
mm,
is where you probably find that you're missing deadlines. You keep checking and cross-checking things maybe 10 times before you're satisfied with it. So it's always good to bring it down, tone it down a bit, and but be adaptable to use it when you need, and when it needs to be toned down, to even tone it down further. So the key is really adaptability and not putting yourself in a box, but knowing that you can actually adapt both. And that's where the confidence comes.
okay, so we grow ourselves to the point where we can identify that this is what I like or this is who I am, but don't stop there. Don't identify with the identity to the point that it just limits you and caps you.
Yeah,
Is what you're
exactly,
saying.
exactly. Yes. So don't become so fixed in it that it becomes a fixed mindset. Basically, that's what we are
Mm,
saying. Because when it becomes a fixed mindset, it's so limiting, and it's a case
mm,
that I can't change. There's nothing I can do about it. You become helpless. It's almost becoming helpless and hopeless. But we're not. We are not helpless and we're not hopeless. We have the capacity to rewire the beliefs
mm,
and create a new belief system that serves us. And it's remembering that in different aspects of your life, you might need to, wire a particular area more than the other. And that's the joy of how we've been created, that we can actually adapt.
yeah. And I know that often when I hear people say that's how I am or that's who I am, for me it's a resistance to change, so
Yeah.
once I'm in a conversation or maybe running a mediation session in an organization and I hear that statement, it's a red flag because that person is just telling me you're trying to push me outside of my box. And I don't want to change. That's what the person is saying. So I find that when I'm consulting, I would kind of just hold back a bit because you're pushing that person beyond that. You need to kind of be careful there and go around it to achieve what you want to achieve. So
Can I
when
just jump in a bit there quickly? And for those that haven't watched the video we did before, the chat we had before, on expectations, do go and
mm,
watch it, because what Blessing has just brought up here is a typical example of what can happen when we're talking about. I think what the discussion we had was on influencing with emotional
yes,
intelligence. It's that video. So what
yeah,
you've just described now is so key, because in a conversation like that, where the person is saying, this is the way I am, that is where you can then manage your own expectations, because this person is telling
mm,
you who they are. Basically, they're telling you that. And it's not even a case that I don't want to change. It might even be a case of I don't even know I can change. But whatever it is, it's information they're giving you.
mm,
So you're right. In that stage, you kind of stop, because what you're doing there is listening to what they're
Mm,
saying, and what they're saying tells you who they are and what they're capable of, what they're capable of doing or not doing. So sorry to
mm,
interrupt you, but I just felt this is a good follow on
mm.
from the conversation we had previously.
Yeah. So what happens in conversations where when that happens, so to speak, and you almost you jam someone's belief. It's a very strong belief for them, and maybe you know different or you know better. How do you carry on the conversation? How do you agree to disagree amicably?
Yeah, I think this is emotional intelligence as well. So the
Mm,
person has come up with what they've said. And you see, when somebody says that quite bluntly, I am this or I can't do this. And you say it's either a case where you go into some form of coaching. So it depends on the relationship. So if
yes.
it's somebody you're managing or leading, then you can actually get into a coaching relationship with, a coaching situation where you coach them to see that they can. And that is where the empowerment comes in. Because
Mm,
when you coach them to see that they can, then they become empowered, and that builds up confidence. So it really
mm,
depends on the relationship. If it's someone I'm about to go into business with or considering doing something with or some form of partnership, then that is where I would then have to manage my expectation and ask the question, can I work with this person with this
mm,
kind of belief? So we've got to, it depends on the situation. If it's a colleague, and I think it really comes back to the fact that you can't change anyone. The only person you can change is yourself,
is
but you
yourself.
can't. Yes, exactly, but you can support somebody else or coach somebody else or create an environment where someone else or other people can change. But again, they have to be aware that they need to change or that they can change, and be willing to actually do the work to change as well. And this is where, still back to what we're talking about, influencing, it's giving them the information or knowledge to that benefits them, to see why changing can benefit them. So it really comes back to the relationship, because if it's looking at someone that I'm going to collaborate with or going to some form of work with, I'm not in the position to be coaching you. That's
Mm,
not what the relationship is. So with that, I then need to ask myself the question, is this something that I can work with? Would this have an impact on the work we want to do together? And what kind of impact? Or is it something I can navigate through? And then you just make the decision based on that.
yeah. I think also another question I would like to pick your brain on is when it comes to beliefs, how do you test your beliefs? How do you check them? So how do I know what I believe?
Okay. Now, I think we went through this when we're talking about the Mindsight Women's Network,
Mm,
where we
mm,
come together to, really women using scripture and science to learn how to thrive. And we're doing a 90-day goal setting journey very soon. And this is one of the things that we're looking at. It's really using questions. I tend to get people to answer quite a few questions. I give them questions, and the questions is really asking them, how questions about their beliefs, basically, without them knowing that I'm asking questions about their
mm,
beliefs. And so this is me as a person doing it, or as a coach doing,
mhm,
with working with people. I'll use lots of questions for you yourself, wanting to understand your beliefs. It's asking yourself the question, what do I believe about certain things? Now, this self-discovery, I did it with a group of doctors at one point, and a doctor, in the coaching session said to me, do you know, after doing that, I realized that I never wanted to be a doctor. And I've
oh,
just
wow.
realized that. And this is a qualified doctor working as a doctor, but then said to me, I just really realized that I only did it to please my parents.
Mm,
So, and then she came up with a lot of other things, in terms of how she,
mm,
her beliefs about things, and then said that it's really thrown her, because it's almost like she's now going to have to rediscover who she is. So it's you paying attention to yourself, asking yourself the question, what do I believe about money? What do I believe about running a business? What do I believe about um anything you want, whatever
Mm,
the question is, it's asking yourself the question, what do you believe? And just pay attention to what your brain comes up with. And I think you mentioned it, the Chinese questioning, where you ask
mm,
five times. That is a good way to do it. You can
mm,
just say, answer the question, then ask yourself another why, and another why, and another why. And that would really unfold quite a bit for you. And you see, once you start asking your brain questions, you'll find answers coming out. And if
mm,
it doesn't, this is where it's always good to work with someone. Get a coach, get someone to work with you to find out what your beliefs are. And if you're listening to this, you're more than welcome to come and join us in the Mindset Women's Network, or even just go to the Mindset Academy on the Soar Higher e-toolkit or self-discovery. It's a toolkit that just asks you lots of questions about that will help you understand your beliefs, or at least kickstart the question for yourself what your beliefs are, and help you to discover and understand
mm.
what you believe about different things.
Yeah, and to add to that, sometimes we find that we have beliefs that we are not even conscious of, that however it is that they've been ingrained in us based on experience, teachings, our environment, social media even can influence our beliefs, one way or the other subconsciously. So you find sometimes that we have underlying beliefs that are in dissonance with what we want. So I can be saying, I want to drive a car. I love cars, but underneath, I don't believe that cars are good because someone I know died of a car accident. Just that's an example. So underneath, there's the whole negative narrative around cars, but at the same time, consciously you're desiring a car and you're wondering what's going on. This is where you have your counter motivation. You have, there's a conflict within you.
Mhm.
Let's say this was the case for someone who, let's use business again, who wants to go into business or wants to extend what they're doing to, let's say they're doing something physically and they want to move virtually, but underneath they don't really believe in virtual trading virtually, or you know what I mean. How do you draw the balance? How do you realign when something is in such dissonance?
Okay. In fact, I used two examples. When you started, the one that came to me was somebody who really wants to drive, has been learning how to drive, failed the test about 6 times. And when I probed, what it was that as much as she desired to drive, she had an underlying belief that, one, it was difficult, and two, it's dangerous,
Hmm.
it's not safe. Those two. So that's one example, and I'll talk to you about how, what we did. Personally, I'll use myself as an example. My dad was a businessman, and I had seen him, fail about twice at those, real big crashes in business. And I always told myself I will never go into business. Never, because what I had seen my dad go through, people duped him. He had, it was just nasty. And my
Hmm.
dad was such a quiet person, so reserved, and really, just such a lovely, reserved man. So to see him go through that, it just,
Hmm.
really devastated me. So I really never wanted to go into business. So when I then um went into business, I would say the first big business I went into, when I opened the salon, because before then I had done quite a few things here and there, which was okay. But when I really stepped out in a huge way to go into business, it freaked me out just as I was about to launch, because and the questions kept flooding in. What if it fails? What if this? And it literally paralyzed me. And I almost did not do it. Almost. I think the only reason why I did was because of a book someone had given me. But I think it was John Odberg. If you want to step out if you want to walk on water, you've got to step out of the boat. I think that was the book I read that really got me going and actually, do it. The other thing was that because of that experience, when I wanted to launch out into business again, after I had closed the salon years later, that belief came up again. It was like, what if it fails? What if,
mm,
So the key is to just pay attention to yourself. So these thoughts come up, understanding what the beliefs are, and it's now time to reframe them and change the narrative that is stored in your brain. So change the narrative to what you want it to be. So for the lady with the driving, what she then told herself, so it's pay attention to the negative belief or the limiting belief that is coming up, and then create a new one in response to it. So that for her it was difficult, so it was then changing that narrative to, I can do this. I can. And then she said to herself, but I don't believe I can. So I said,
mm,
okay, now let's look at other people. Have other people done it? And she said, yes. So what's the difference between you and them? If people that, there are people, she said, yeah, but that's true. There are people that I know that are even more scared than me. They've passed. So what is holding me back? So I said, so what is holding you back? And then she said that, okay, let me look at it this way. I can. It might be challenging, but I can. And I said, exactly.
mm,
It might be challenging, but you can do it. And once she used that narrative, it just changed a whole lot of things. Now, because she had done it about 6 times before we met up, I then had to change that even challenging, got her to drop it and said, I've had so much practice that I can do this. So we
mm,
dropped the negative, the challenging, and then went, I've had so much practice, so many lessons that I know now that I can do this.
mm.
And she passed her test on the 7th time.
Oh, nice,
Do
nice,
you see?
nice,
So
nice.
it's
Mm,
changing the narrative for you. For me in the business, it was a case of what if it fails? Because what the business I had run before, I had to close. So I then
mm,
went, yeah, if it does, then at least I've tried and done it and it
mm,
failed. And I would have learned
mm,
some lessons along the way to help me with the next one. Can
mm,
I, can I, do I want to be in business was the question I had to come back to because of the previous belief I realized I had. And I had to really truthfully answer that question, that yes, I do want to go into business again. I am a
mm,
businesswoman. I do enjoy business. And I had to now look for the positives of why
mm.
I do enjoy being in business. So that would then help you create the new narrative, and it's repetition. You just need to keep repeating it to yourself, and that really helps you create the new narrative you want.
It's interesting because of the way, I don't know if to say society or if it's just what it is, the connotation that failure is negative.
Yeah.
If we change the narrative and make failure part of the success equation, what does that mean for us? If we
Mhm,
just look at failure as it's just part of it, it's one of the things, it's a road to success. It's an option appraisal. You know what I mean? So it's
mhm,
an
mhm,
option. It's the same way you'd say A or B. It could be failure or it could be success, and it's not negative. It becomes negative if we attach the stigma and the shame and all of that that goes with it. But if we change the narrative around failure and decide that failure is not negative, but just part of the story, we wouldn't be so scared, would we? We wouldn't be so disempowered because it didn't work. I'll try someone else. It didn't work. I'll try something else. But then what happens is when it doesn't work how we expected, back to expectations,
mhm,
we
mhm,
we
mhm.
freeze, we trap ourselves. As a
Yeah.
businesswoman, I've met so many people and I've engaged myself in so many collaborations. Some worked, some didn't. So when
Yeah.
it doesn't work, did you then rule out all human beings and decide that collaboration is not good, no human beings are good anymore? You'd never progress.
Mhm,
But it's
mhm,
always better to explore further. So like you're
mhm,
saying, if it doesn't work, reframe. It's
mhm,
not that I'm not good, it's not that I'm not right, It's just a situation. It's just what it is. So what could I do differently to make this better next time? What lessons am I learning from this? And it's important to fall forward. I always say better to try and have to try again than not try at all. So I
Mm-hmm,
think if we can change our view on that word failure, if we can remove the stigma attached to it and just have it as part of our success equation, we'll be able to do more.
yeah, no, that's so true, so true. I think the narrative around failure and the narrative around anything is just paying attention to the narrative you give around different,
Mm,
different things. It would really make a huge difference to you. Failure is a huge one because even with
mm,
me, when the business closed, I didn't just see the business failed. I failed. It was a personal thing. I felt I was a
mm,
failure. And that's how we kind of take in situations and, that catastrophic thinking trap that we
mm,
all experience is that because one thing didn't work, everything else it will not work. I remember
mm,
going to a trip with a lady, and we went to do some work in a country, and we were going to the bus stop to catch a bus
mm.
to go to go out of town, and she said, "Oh, it's I'm sure by the time we get there, it will go, knowing my luck." And I'm
Oh
going,
wow.
what? And I'm going, no. When we get to that bus stop, the bus will just be pulling in and we're getting on it
Mm,
because the next bus was
mm,
another half an hour wait and it was hot.
mm, mm,
So I said, let's walk fast because we're getting on this bus. We did. And
mm,
then we got on the bus and she went, wow, Maureen, that's amazing. Oh, I just love the way you believed and you just went for it. And I'm going, but why why did you actually make that kind of statement? It's almost like you
mm,
didn't want to catch the bus. And you see, it was such a subconscious thing. She wasn't even aware she was doing it. And I kept picking up every time she did it. It was so negative. It was always, when it comes to my turn, it won't work or it's not going to happen. And for me, it was just, I was so alert. So I was picking it up so fast.
mm,
And that's what we need to do, not just for others, for ourselves. How you think. What are you telling yourself? Is it
mm,
empowering or is it disempowering? Because when you really pay attention to what you tell yourself, you will know what beliefs you have, and it just gives you the tools to be able to start changing them to what you want them to be, so that you're not a victim of your thoughts, or victim of
mm,
life. You get in control, and you know make your life what you want it to be, as opposed to being a victim of what people say or what your brain has already been wired to believe.
yeah, that's so true. So, in summary, what are we saying? What's the best way to journey from disempowerment to confidence when it comes to our beliefs?
Pay attention to what you're saying, pay attention to yourself, recognize your thoughts, and first and foremost, start changing them. Your brain talks to you. Your brain is always telling
Mm,
you things. So pay attention to what it's saying. If it tells you, comes up with a negative, disempowering belief, change it to the positive one you want it to be, and
mm,
start dwell on it, keep reinforcing it, keep reinforcing that new belief you want to establish, because the more you reinforce it, then it will become more like a normal to you, and then that's a new belief, that's you creating a new belief system for yourself, and that is where the confidence comes. A lot
mm,
of times we talk about, oh, lack of confidence. You hear people going, I don't have confidence, I don't have confidence. The more you keep saying it, the
mm,
more you will believe it. So
mm,
instead of focusing on what you don't want, focus on what you want, because that's where the rewiring comes in.
mm,
Talk about
mm.
what you want, visualize what you want, say what you want, be what you want. You don't go for a job and going, I'm not going to get it. Well, I do have people that say that you're going for a job interview, and before you've even been there, I know I won't get it, I know I won't get the
And
job.
because they're trying to avoid, when there's no
The
hope, there's no
disappointment.
disappointment.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, yeah. But again, you see, you're telling yourself that the interesting thing is that when you say it, your subconscious brain is hearing it. And what does it
Mm,
do? You go in there because you've said you won't get it. Your brain will then show you don't get it because one, you probably
mm,
forget everything that you're meant to say there because you're so active. Your brain is already activated to the fact that you won't get it. So all you see is things that will not
mm,
make you get it. You might get in there and panic, or it could be a whole lot of things.
mm,
So focus on what you want, because when you go, even if you don't get it, you've learned, you've done
mm,
something, you've at least
mm,
done it, you've stretched yourself, possibly, you've stepped
mm,
out, you've done something. Even if you don't get it, it means that it wasn't the right one for you, or maybe not the right
mm.
time. You know what? Pat yourself on the back and then keep going till you get
Yeah.
the one you want.
I think that leads into resilience, which I think we should have a conversation on as a separate topic on its own, because resilience is something that seems to be slipping away from us at the moment because of the world we live in now. Everything is fast and furious. As I click a button and I get what I want, and before I place my order, Amazon has delivered. So everything is fast and furious.
Mm,
That there's the lasting power that we have innately as human beings is slowly fading away because we're not keeping it going. It's not like it isn't there, but it's not active, so it's not growing. So I think we should do something on resilience, because it's a vital skill that we all as human beings must have and grow. Because without resilience, how do you do anything? As
mhm.
soon as it doesn't work, I quit. No,
Exactly.
not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you. I think so. Watch out. We're coming back with a topic soon on resilience. So,
Yeah.
and I think it's a good one. It's a good one to talk
Mm,
about, especially the difference between resilience and grit and all that. So it would be
mm,
nice to have a chat about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But folks, that's all we have time for on this session. We hope you have benefited from the conversation. We do read the comments, so do please share in the comments any thoughts or comments that you might have on this session. And until next time, it's bye from me, Maureen.
And bye from me. See you soon.
Thank you.